Hello everyone and welcome back to Play for Fun. In today's new episode of Eldoria, I'll be showing you some of the detailed refinements I've been working on. It all started with the redesign of the industrial district. Once that area came together perfectly, and I was really happy with the final layout, I couldn't help but notice that the green spaces and detailed designs in other parts of the city didn't feel as good anymore. I kept thinking, this needs to change. Another big reason for these upgrades was the heavy traffic buildup at major intersections and busy streets. I had to do something, and so, the journey began. Guys, I have to say, this process turned out way longer than I initially expected. Working on fine details requires a ton of precision and patience, because if you don't get it just right, everything can fall apart. Alright, let me spoil it for you. Mission accomplished. Everything has come together just as planned, and now, let me show you in detail how it all happened. This intersection was the very first place where I started working. Just look at the congestion right in the middle. It was crazy. Pedestrians were crossing right in the middle of the streets, making the problem even worse. This spot right here is a prime example. Just look at how pedestrians are completely blocking the intersection. Sometimes, the traffic gets so tangled up in the middle, with long lines of cars piling up, that everything comes to a standstill. And on top of all that, it doesn't look great either. So, I figured, why not build some pedestrian bridges? That way, I could clear up the streets, ease the congestion, and make everything flow much smoother. And that's exactly what I did. And just look at that. See the difference? Those pedestrian bridges are doing their job perfectly. Well, that's one victory down. Before we move on to the next part of the city, did you notice all the redesigned details? The upgraded surfaces, and the overall redesign of the green spaces and other elements? Well, maybe it's easier to see from up here. Working on these small details has been one of the most time-consuming parts of the project. But honestly, it's also been one of the most enjoyable. Maybe if you take a look at this area before all these changes, you'll get a clearer picture of just how much things have changed. Adding these surfaces really makes a huge visual impact. I carefully integrated them between buildings and various elements in this part of the city. Even just adding one item can make a huge difference, but on its own, it still feels a bit empty and unfinished. It gets so much better once trees, bushes, and greenery are added. Using items currently available in Vanilla Mod doesn't just help fill empty spaces, it significantly elevates the city's overall level of detail. Combining these decorative items with green spaces and trees creates such a visually stunning effect. It would be fantastic if future updates bring more variety to the base game, without requiring any mods. And even better, if these objects actually function. Imagine citizens sitting on benches, relaxing under gazebos, or gathering around working fountains with real flowing water. That kind of realism would take the city's immersion to a whole new level. For the lower intersection, I implemented the same pedestrian bridge solution. Continuing these detailed improvements, we arrive at this part of the city, the gateway to the newer, denser district with its tall buildings and bustling population. In this section, I implemented the pedestrian bridge system once again, this time with a more intricate design. I transformed the area into a large, customized park, allowing pedestrians to move freely in any direction using these bridges and designated pathways, without disrupting intersections. Beyond functionality, I aim to make this park a visually stunning centerpiece of the city, adding a refreshing contrast to the surrounding urban landscape. Of course, I had to remove quite a few buildings to make room for this transformation, but honestly, a little sacrifice was necessary to achieve something truly remarkable. As we move forward, the density of the city keeps increasing, leading us to the next major area, just beyond these towering buildings. This spot sits right before the central train station, a bustling transit hub with 2 metro stations. A huge number of people pass through here, making it one of the busiest zones in the city. Just like on the opposite side, I built a series of connected pedestrian bridges here too, allowing people to move freely from any direction to any destination, without blocking the roads. And the result? Just look at how actively people are using these pathways. Eldoria's citizens love them. I really loved the changes in this part, honestly. If I hadn't shown the before and after images, you probably wouldn't have recognized what it looked like before the transformation. Now we've arrived at my favorite part of the city, the heart of Eldoria, the central train station. The changes were huge. Just like the intersections, this area now has smoother movement, a more structured layout, and an overall more realistic flow, especially with the metro stations pumping massive crowds into this spot. Another popular question was why I didn't use metro stations directly underneath the train station. Well, I really enjoyed seeing the energy and hustle of the crowds and wanted to challenge myself to manage it properly. But if you prefer a more controlled flow, using that option would definitely help keep the crowd movement more streamlined within the station itself. One of the biggest congestion issues was the large square surrounding the central train station. So, what did I do to fix it? Creating dedicated stopping zones for trams outside the main roads. The trams no longer had to stop on the busy, high-traffic streets. They finally had their own designated space, and it worked perfectly. To ensure smooth pedestrian movement, I set up a network of bridges and underpasses, allowing citizens and travelers to reach their destinations without blocking the main streets. This solution has really worked well. The issue seems to be resolved. I also extended this pedestrian network to the lower section of the central train station, another hotspot for traffic congestion. All these upgrades have significantly reduced the severe traffic problems in this area. Sure, cars still gather here from time to time, but that's completely normal. After all, this is the busiest part of the city. You've probably noticed the huge changes in the details and greenery throughout this entire area. Well, I have to say, it's been completely redesigned. Guys, all of this took countless hours of work, but when the final results come together and we look back at all the effort, it's clear that every second spent on it was worth it. Well, finally, after all, the final area I worked on is right by the river, a part of the city that needed some key upgrades. I expanded the educational district, adding schools, elementary schools, and colleges wherever possible. Many of the temporary school buildings from before have now been replaced with more permanent structures. I tried to arrange the educational buildings in a way that is both functional and visually appealing. Let me know what you think about this part of the city. I'm still unsure about it myself. It's one of those areas that I might completely redesign later or make some adjustments to improve it. Looking forward to your feedback. Let's refine it together. I also designated a space for cemeteries, though I'm still unsure about it too. To improve accessibility, I built a network of underpasses connecting this side of the city to the other side of the highway, ensuring smooth pedestrian movement and better public transport access. I even added a dedicated bus line for this area, which ultimately connects to the tram and metro stations at the end. Right next to all of this, I placed a ton of parking spaces, which were clearly necessary, and they've already filled up fast, proving just how high the demand was. This area has come a long way, but as I mentioned earlier, it's still far from final. There are plenty of spots that I'll likely change later. Finally, there's this major intersection, where traffic from the highway exits and connects the school district to the rest of the city. This spot was handling a huge load, so, just like the other areas I've worked on, I integrated a network of bridges and underpasses to manage the flow. And that wraps up all the changes I've made to the city for this video so far. Like I've mentioned before, this process has taken a lot of time, and sure, I could have cut back on some of the details to speed things up. My goal is to make sure that the videos I create and the cities I build are at the highest level I could achieve at that moment. It takes time, but in the end, I hope the final result is something you'll enjoy just as much as I do. This video was a bonus episode, bridging episode 4 and 5, but I'll be back very soon with episode 5. The goal? Reaching a population of 750,000. Now that we've prepared Eldoria for its massive population boom, and I'm beyond excited for it, I hope you are too. Until then, just like always, happy building.